Trevor, 50 years ago, unbelievable. I'm just looking at this fabulous frame here. 50 years ago, this fresh-faced youngster came on the pitch and scored 4 goals. I mean, what are your recollections of coming onto the pitch as a 16-year-old?
Well, it was obviously a special day, and it's got more and more important as the years have passed. It's less than 2 weeks since, it was 50 years, the 20th of February, and enough Blues supporters have reminded me of the occasion. There were 25,000 at the game, but the number of people that have, supposedly told me that they were there, something like 100,000. But they were great days, and it's something that I'll always remember. How can you forget, scoring 4 goals as a 16-year-old?
Yeah. I suppose at 16 you're just happy to be in the team, wouldn't you? To be on the pitch. But to score a goal would be fantastic. To score 2, amazing. 3, a hat-trick, unbelievable. 4 for a 16-year-old. It's never been done since, and likely will never ever be done again.
I think you're probably right. I thought for a while that nobody at 16 years of age, would play in the first team again at Birmingham City, but that changed last year with Jude Bellingham breaking my record. But I think I'm fairly sure that nobody at 16 is going to score 4 goals. If they do, well, I'll say no, well done.
Did you realise at the time, you knew it was amazing, but did you realise how important it was, how big a deal scoring 4 goals was?
Probably not. I was, as you said, fresh-faced, young, only been in the first team for a few games, and I was just taking everything in my stride. But to be fair, you've known me for a long, long time. That's how I've been throughout my career. I never get too excited about the highs, and there have been plenty of them. And equally so, there's always lows around the corner, and you have to take that in your stride. More recently, when I say more recently, I'm talking probably late 80s. I scored 3 goals for QPR as a player manager at the age of 35. And that was at Villa Park, of all places. And I'm often asked, Tom, what do you consider to be the biggest achievement? And people's views vary, but for me it has to be, despite the fact that scoring 3 against Aston Villa as a 35-year-old is probably something that will never ever be repeated. I think scoring 4 as a 16-year-old just tips the scales in favour of that momentous day.
What were your teammates like about it?
I came off, if you can see there, my last goal was 83 minutes, and scoring the 4th goal, I received a whack on my thigh, which resulted in me limping for a little bit, and Freddie Goodwin decided to pull me off. So I went off and sat in the bath, and then 10 minutes later, all the players came in the dressing room, and they all came up to me and, saying well done. And I was more interested in what Keith Bowker did when he came on, because he was the lad who replaced me. And I heard that he'd had 1 or 2 chances, and I'm thinking to myself, I just wonder if I could have scored those. Now, that's me being greedy, isn't it? Trying to sort of, improve on the 4 goals.
I don't know about greedy. It probably sums up what you're about and your desire to be the best. That probably sums up that even then you wanted to score 5 or 6.
I enjoyed scoring, and I think anyone that say that they don't enjoy scoring a goal are lying. But I always felt that there was more to my game than just scoring. I look at certain players over the years, and if they're not scoring, then they do well to justify their starting position in the team. I enjoyed making goals, as they call them now, assists. One of my greatest strengths was my passing ability. And even a greater strength was my ability to cross balls when I'm at speed, running to the byline and whipping balls into the box for the likes of Bob Latchford and Bob Hatton in them days. So I had plenty of other strengths, but it was always nice to score a goal, of course.
Speaking to Bob Hatton and Bob Latchford, they pay enormous credit to you for the goals they got. We count assists today. I don't think we counted them in those days. If we did, you'd be well up there with the assists as well. As you say, an important part of your game. What I wanted to ask you was, you went on you played all over the world, you played for England, you won the European Cup. Did Birmingham City fans see the most inventive of you as a player? That young 16-year-old who do things nobody expected, least of all the defenders, had no idea what you were doing. Did we see the best of you?
Because I'm doing this interview at St Andrews, the answer is yes. If I was up at the City Ground or at the Etihad or even over in Genoa, in front of Sampdoria supporters, they would probably say exactly the same thing. But because I was so young and doing it at such a very young age, it transformed people's lives. All of a sudden, from like 13,000 being at the stadium, a few months later, and I'm talking 3 or 4 months later, there were 45, 50,000 people coming, and many of them were coming because they wanted to see me, and that's a wonderful feeling. When you go on that football pitch, and any worries that you have are quickly put aside because I was so young. So it didn't matter, Tom, if I made mistakes, and I'm damn sure I made plenty of them. I think there were occasions when I could have just dropped the ball off, with a simple pass to a colleague, but I would try and beat 3 and 4 players, and I have to say often I did do that, and then stick it in the back of the net. But they were marvellous times, and I was playing with no inhibitions at all, just going out there, enjoying myself, because at 16 years of age, I was just a kid. And if the kid made mistakes, it didn't matter.
Well, I can vouch for that, because I remember coming here in those days, not many people here, and all of a sudden, big crowds. And the big crowds came to see this phenomenon, this 16-year-old that everybody was talking about. So you actually made people come through the door. And that itself is probably something you didn't realise at the time. But now, they would pay multi-millions for somebody that could bring people through the door.
I think promotion year, there were 8 occasions when we had in excess of 40,000 at the stadium. A couple of games, cup games, there were 52,000. I always recall one particular game, 1972, when it was just prior to the semi-final against Leeds, and Don Revie was at the stadium here at St Andrews running the rule over us, and we had a free kick, towards this side of the pitch, towards the Kop. In those days, there were probably, there was no seating, and there was probably 20,000 people, shouting for me to shoot. And when I looked at the distance, it was probably 35 to 40 yards, and I knew that the 2 centre halves had gone forward, looking for me to clip the ball in the box, looking for their, for them aerially. But I did what they asked and shot, and I struck it so cleanly. Against Blackpool it was, and I think John Burridge was the goalkeeper, and it flew past John Burridge. And in my book, which I wrote, it's a couple of years ago now, I think I gave the 20,000 in the Kop an assist each, because without them, I would not have taken that shot on.
I remember it, Trev, and it was where you think, surely, no, he can't. And you did. And I remember the crowd all shoot, shoot, shoot. I remember it. And, it was one of many, though. I mean, I remember TV doing a montage funny enough, to Strange Magic, Jeff Lynne's song. I think, was it against QPR? When you tore him to bits. I mean, you're just growing in confidence.
Well, that was one of the goals that has been regularly shown over the years. You have to remember, Tom, we really used to have the cameras here. So, even a situation where maybe twice a year match of the day cameras came, put that little bit of pressure on, to try and sort of play that, extra bit special, trying to sort of show, people not just here in Birmingham, but throughout the country that, I'm a decent player. And, I was hoping, of course, to go on and try and play, for my country. But that was, a goal that has been talked about for years and years and years. But going back to your original question about, did the Blues supporters see the best of me? They probably saw more spectacular individual goals than anywhere else in my footballing career.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The inventive, like one of those, the 4 goals, where, you lobbed the keeper, ran round him and headed it in. I mean, nobody had seen anything like that. That's what I mean about inventive. Yeah. It was just, wow, what is this all about? But then at 16, you played in an era where defenders were uncompromising, weren't they? I mean, even at 16, you got some terrible treatment.
Well, there were many, things that were different in them days to what they are now. Undoubtedly, players who play in forward positions are far more protected. The days when I played, the tackle from behind was something that every defender relished doing. And, rarely did they get booked. I could be fouled 3, 4, 5 times without a yellow card being brandished. Apart from that, the actual playing surfaces were like, compared to today, every game in the Premier League, you can't really, tell whether it's the start or the end of the season. The time when I played, you certainly knew it was the end of the season because there wasn't a blade of grass on the pitch and they weren't particularly flat. So the number of times that balls would come in the box and you think, right, just get over it and make sure you get a good connection, side foot it, and it would bobble up and hit your, your shin. And then, you'd be accused of like missing an absolute sitter when it was probably the problem was the surface. Even the balls were far, far heavier. So much lighter now. I talked about, shooting from 35, 40 yards, probably with a ball as it is today, I'll be taking free kicks from the halfway line.
But we've talked about these 4 goals, and that's what it is about. The anniversary of a very, very special day that Blues fans will never forget that we're here. Whether it was the 20,000 or the 100,000 who were there that day, they'll never, ever forget it. Can
I just say something about it, if you don't mind me saying, Tom? Because,
go ahead.
Over the years, I've been asked to sign so many different, things ranging from, football shirts to programs to, obviously photographs. But this here, I think, is something, for me, really special. It's been designed, superbly. It is 50 years. And the way that that's put together, I think that this is something that, Blues fans who are probably my age or were around that era that followed me very, very closely will treasure because it's different. Yeah. I've not come across anything quite like this. And, I'm really, really pleased with it.
Trev, lots of dinners, we see lots of auction items and everything, all sorts of things, very similar. This is unique, isn't it? That's the thing. And you've signed them. I just see your signature there. It's signed, it's authentic, it's unique. And I think that's the important thing about this is its uniqueness. Yeah. It's never happened before, it'll never happen again. And there it is, in pictures, signed, the programme front, all the details. I mean, what more could you want? Yeah. And the colour's right as well.
Yep, even the programme is there, from that particular day. As I say, the 20th of February, 1971. Only seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. It's 50 years ago. And it's brilliant the way it's been done. And I'm so, so pleased with it.
If it was tomorrow, Trevor, you wouldn't come off.
I came off in that match because on the Tuesday night, there was a youth cup game for Blues at Arsenal.
And you were playing in that?
Well, I got myself fit. After the game, I went to my auntie and uncle's over in Oxfordshire, but I had to come back the Sunday morning to have treatment. And it was touch and go whether I was going to be fit for the game at Highbury. I was fit. There was a huge media presence there because of what I achieved on the Saturday. But I can assure you, Tom, that I couldn't repeat anything like what I did against Bolton in this particular game we're looking at. I was less than average at Highbury.
Less than average? You've never been less than average. Just a bit more on this. The following game, did you... I can't remember. Were you in the first team from the start the following game?
I think I'm right in saying that the following game was at Swindon. And I know that the guy who was marking me on that particular day was one of the all-time great defenders. That was big Dave Mackay. Yeah, and we beat Swindon at the county ground, and I scored the 2 that day. So wasn't a bad week, was it?
Poor performance too, Trev, after the 4, to be But at 16, 4-2, and marked by one of the greats, Dave Mackay, who wasn't shy in letting you know he was around either. But you coped with all that. Does that just show how mentally strong, even at 16, you were?
Being mentally strong, yeah, I think that was important. And I think even more important was the fact that, it was very, very important not to allow this to go to your head, because, you can imagine the acclaim from everyone. I was being asked to do this and that, and my time just wasn't myself. But I was fortunate that I had a good upbringing, and, this was a special day. As I said, scoring 3 as a 35-year-old was a special day. Being the first £1 million footballer, making my debut for England, playing in World Cups, they were all special days, but I just took it in my stride. And it means so much to me when I look back and, to remember, I was fortunate to play against, some of the greats. I mentioned Dave Mackay, but playing against Manchester United and Dennis Law and Bobby Charlton and George Best. I'm sure my age, but I'm absolutely delighted that, I was able to play against those. And in this particular game here, I often ask this question, do you know who the Bolton manager was on that particular day? I only mention it because it was like one of the all-time great footballers, Nat Loftus,
the Lion of Vienna. Yeah. But and this, the one thing, and finally, what I wanted to ask you was, you've been all over the world. Do you ever fully realise how much affection and love Blues fans have for you?
Do I? I was very concerned about, losing that wonderful rapport that we had in my 9 years here as a footballer when I came back as a manager. So I wanted to do, I don't know about do as well as I did as a player, but I didn't want to let them down. And I was here for 5 years and I didn't quite achieve what I wanted to do. I got the team to a cup final. I got them to 3 playoffs. But equally important was that when I came out of St Andrews after 5 years, I'd done everything I possibly could. I felt that I couldn't do any more. And, people were still, so pleased that I'd, spent 5 years managing the football club, and nothing had changed, Tom. So, yeah, in answer to your question, I've spent in total 14 years, as a player and as a manager at Birmingham City Football Club. That's a big chunk in anyone's footballing career. But my life, I am from Plymouth, as you know, but home has always been in the West Midlands here in Solihull. And I can't go anywhere without people to this day, even this morning, I was out doing my normal walk and people are stopping me, wanting to have a photo, wanting to talk about, a particular game. It's just wonderful. So in answer to your question, I don't want this to sound big-headed, but I do appreciate and I do understand the feeling from Birmingham City supporters towards me.